Have you been feeling a deep desire to start over? Have you been feeling an ending of a path and need to look for something new? Have you had to rebuild in the past and are tired of wanting to do it again? I understand. It's always hard to move through the realization that what was working in our life no longer serves us. We have to go through a grieving process and find the strength to get back up and do it all over again. It would be easy to say that each time it gets easier, but each situation is always a little different. And with that brings new levels of complexity. Most new beginnings are centered around the work that we do. What was a satisfying career can just turn right upside down. And life is interwoven. We know everything is connected. And so when one area of our life is affected, every other area is also affected. And when that happens, we know deep down inside that it's going to be time to rebuild all over again. And when we feel a major cycle is done, there's usually that dreaded question, is it too late to start over again? We get so used to being in our comfort zones, we wonder if could we just push through, keep doing what we're doing, maybe we'll find a solution, but that's usually not the case. We know that we have to come to that realization and we have to know that something is just done and we have to move through it. And so it's never too late to start over again. You can do anything that you want to pursue if it's in your mind, if it's something that you're feeling deep inside of you to go. If you're still breathing, you can make a change. If you're not satisfied with where you're at in life, you are actually obligated to make those changes to yourself. It's something that your soul is calling you to do, and you need to go out in the world and you need to make those changes. You need to pick yourself up and you have to go save yourself. You owe it to yourself. If you don't do it, who's going to do it? Who's going to come in and rescue you the way that only you know how to do? And when we are able to practice this, this is what radical accountability is. This is how we bring unconditional love within us because we're making sure that all of our needs are met before anyone else can try and do it. And we're not creating codependent relationships because we're there for ourselves and we're making sure that those relationships that we have are there in a much more healthy way and they're supporting us in the way that we need. And so when we're able to put those motions into action for ourselves, it'll be reflected in the qualities of others around us. And it's going to have that ripple effect. So if we learn how to have unconditional love for ourselves, knowing when it's time to change, knowing when it's time to start over again, it's going to have a radical shift. And a lot of times that becomes difficult because the people that we're around may not want us to change because they have to do one of two things. They either have to change with us, which is a huge ask, unless you're growing with a partner, you're growing with people, or they're going to stay the same and they're going to start to see the difference between what you're doing and where you're going and where they're not, or because they've decided that being in a comfort zone, staying safe, playing small, playing safe works for them, doesn't work for you anymore. And so there's this agitation that happens inside of us. We struggle to see how can we change and move forward in our life and still be in the same environments, which don't really work. And so we tend to hesitate when we're ready for change. We don't know how to actually make the change because we're trying to make change in our same environment, and that doesn't usually work. But when we are ready for change and when it's clear to head into a new direction and this call is happening, I want you to think about how your soul is calling you and that it actually becomes a personal initiation and a rite of passage that you're heralding into a new level of growth. And it's something on a deeper level. Like when we talk about having a soul calling, when we talk about kind of living a spiritual life, these are the moments that count the most. This is where we take radical accountability for what we're doing. And we want to make sure that we're listening to that. Is it challenging? Yes, absolutely. That's the point. That's what growth is for. That's how we know we can level up. And that's how we know we're ready to get new skill sets and make sure that we're building a confidence in a way that we haven't done before because we've already surpassed the level that we're at. So when we hit this rite of passage and we're ready for this level of growth, think of it as like a new portal that you're wanting to enter to bring into this sort of like new timeline, if you will, where you're now looking and projecting a vision of your life that's on a whole different trajectory. And it will feel like starting over again because it is, but you're just starting again. It's not really starting over because you're taking with you all of the wisdom and the knowledge from previous accounts of you shifting and changing and growing. And it's so interesting when we're children, we don't really have, or even young adults or teenagers, we don't really have as much issue with changing. We just sort of roll into it, and we may just not even realize some of the emotions that come up because we're just really kind of on to the next thing. And then as we get older, we sort of get set in our ways, and we really want to be mindful of that because it's really important to always have that curiosity that we keep evolving and we keep going. And I think one thing to really also acknowledge when that insight in you, that shift in you comes up where you do want to change, where you do want to kind of start over again, where it feels like everything's crumbling, to really sit and be proud of yourself. Because in order for you to have that awareness, you would have had to change. Like there's already a change happening. There's already a crack in the wall where you're seeing that what was once doable, acceptable, no longer is. And it's a call that you need to shed that old energetic skin and have compassion for yourself and the process that you even made, it's very much internal, that brought you there. And so as you're standing today, you just have to understand that like nothing is the same, not even you, and things are supposed to change, and to embrace that as you move forward. And ideally, I loved playing this game with myself when I'm thinking about something that I want to do. I always want to fast forward myself 5, 10 years into the future. And I want to think, how will I want to look back on this situation? How will I want to look at the choices and the decisions that I made? You do the best that you can, but sometimes if you can have that moment to really get perspective as much as you can before you have to have hindsight to see, is this the choice that I want to make? Am I going to be happy that I made the change? Or am I going to be happy that I stayed in the same spot? And the majority of the time, it's always going to be, as challenging as it is, I'm really happy that I got up and I did the change. And so you want to always like follow through with those. You always want to follow through and embark on those cyclical nudges that happen, right? They happen all the time. We go through our seasons every year, and there's always that shift and that way that we want to mold ourselves. You'll get that lucky opportunity at the end of your life when you look back to see how much you actually got to live because you played a bigger role. You didn't play small, and you'll get to see all of these sweet versions that you ended up becoming and playing. It is time to prepare yourself, gather your thoughts, and get clear on a vision towards a new horizon. We always have this opportunity to do this. It's always a great time, especially if you're watching this video right now, this is a calling, that this is something that you want to do. And even if you're not completely sure where you're going, just keep moving in the direction that feels right. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and you will figure it out as you go. And remember in this process to let go of any judgment. Anyone that heavily projects their opinions on you tends to be insecure themselves in making the decisions in their lives. It's one thing to have words of caution, but those only need to go so far. If people are holding you back, and understand that it is them that is too afraid to take the actions that you obviously are not. And remember to let go of fear. And I know that is so much easier said than done, but it's just this illusion. And every time, if you've tried this, anytime that you push through the fear, you realize it wasn't as bad as you thought. And you just have to keep that momentum going of like, what's that one next step in front of the other so that you can move through that process and you can push into resistance and find ways to just play with the energy and alchemize it and move it around. So when we let go of fear, sometimes we have to not tell people what we're doing so that we don't have to bring on any of their worries on us because they're too scared to take actions in their lives. They tend to be kind of scaredy cats. So let them be in the place that they are and move stealthily in the way that you want to move forward. Take those baby steps by researching what it is that you need to know so that you can keep going. And if we can embrace curiosity, when change is calling and you listen to it, that soul, shaking you in your body to get into a new environment, to get up and rise again, you're going to know how to move through resistance. You're going to know how to move through fear in a very easy way. So really, if you're feeling this calling to start again, Yes, it is okay to start again. It is absolutely the right time to start again. This is the call to go and rise up and start over and start what makes sense for you. When there's new growth ready to take place, the old needs to go and stay in the past so that we can make room for progress. Where do you start? Here's a couple steps to kind of consider. Here's a couple steps to consider. There's usually two main important steps to make for any change, and there's about 12 dozen micro steps in between. But just to boil it down, you make the decision that something needs to be changed, step one, and then step two, take action towards it. Whatever that action is, to move closer to that and closer to that. And while this is a radical oversimplification, it's really not, right? If we can just keep those two main steps, make the decision, move towards it, make the decision, move towards it. It's left, right, one step in front of the other. It's going to get easier and easier. And we're going to learn about ourselves in the process. We're going to learn how we move through change and challenges in the process. And it's just those little stair steps that let us level up one by one. When we learn what we want and then make a definitive decision, we can have whatever we want. We fear we'll fail. We fear that we're not going to pick the right choice, the right one, the right direction. We fear that we won't be able to correct any mistakes. We fear that change will take us away from what we know, but we all have these fears. And what we forget is that there's something else on the other side of that. If the change is right for you, you need to do it. If your soul has been calling you, if there's something inside of you that's shaking to move forward because something just doesn't feel right, you owe it to yourself. This is how we give ourselves unconditional love, to go and do that action. You decide and you take action. Even if it doesn't feel right now that you're having this, like at some point this is going to happen for you. And when it does, just come back to this video and just think about these two main steps. You decide and you take action. I hope this was helpful for you. I appreciate you being here and listening to these insights. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you've started over, anything that you have taken into consideration to get you to the next level. And let's build a community here so that we can kind of help each other out as we move through lots of changes that are going to happen in our society, in what we're doing. I look forward to seeing you in the next one, and take care. Bye.